1. People and animals.
An elderly family member.
Speaking of an elderly family member, I want to talk about my grandpa. He is 73 this year, but definitely looks much younger than he actually is. He is very tall and a little bit overweight. He is very handsome and definitely charismatic. My mum got this gene from my grandpa, and thank God I got this gene from my mum as well. My grandpa is a very modern person. I know that you might wonder, how modern could he be? Well, unlike other retired elderly people who just play Tai Chi, walk birds, play chess or watch TV all day long like a couch potato, my grandpa's life is absolutely diversified and colourful. He is a big fan of taking pictures, enjoying the haute cuisine, singing karaoke, collecting antiques, speculating in stocks, and travelling around the world. The nicest thing is that he is doing everything with my grandma. Their love is really making people jealous. And my grandpa even got his own blog. He writes lots of articles in there. One day I was reading his blog. I was totally impressed by an article he wrote. At the very beginning, it was a photo of beautiful fireworks. It was taken in Tiananmen Square on last National holiday. Beneath the picture, my grandpa wrote an article of "What is real happiness?" The words impressed me most are, "People often say that when fireworks display starts, reality ends and fantasy begins." It is the most incredible feeling ever. I am 72 this year and have seen lots of firework displays before. As far as I am concerned, it doesn't matter where in the world I watch the fireworks, as long as I can hold the hands with my love and enjoy every drop of happiness. I am telling you, for 1 second, I couldn't believe that these words were from my grandpa. I mean, who would ever imagine these romantic words were actually from a 72-year-old person? Now I finally see the true meaning of youth is not a time of life, it is a state of mind. I love my grandpa. He is a really special man.
Alright, I'm still not exactly sure if I'm going to make one video on this whole topic or if I'm going to split it up into separate videos, one for each specific task, because in the whole recording there are like 15, let's call them subtopics, 15 prompts. All of them except for one is about people. The last one is about animals, even though this is entitled People and Animals. Only the last one is really about animals. And they're all very similar. They all kind of follow the same pattern. So I'm still not exactly sure. Maybe I'll just leave them all together as one video. Anyway, like I said, they all follow the same pattern. They all follow the same introduction to the task 2, long turn. And I have a problem with, I think, pretty much all of these introductions. Let me just see, because they all start off the same way. Yeah, I think it's pretty much all of them. No, that's not true. One is a little bit different. One is different. Except for one, they all start off by saying, speaking of, and then they repeat the topic that was mentioned in the prompt. Now, I don't have the prompt to this particular task, but it was probably something like, describe an elderly family member. And this person starts by saying, speaking of an elderly family member, I want to talk about my grandpa. But who was speaking about an elderly family member? The examiner? No, they weren't. They just told you what they wanted you to talk about. They didn't actually say anything about an elderly family member. Speaking of is used when someone else mentions or talks about a topic. So for example, here you can see this conversation between A and B, where A actually says something about a topic. For example, we need to get the tires checked on the car soon. Speaking of tires, I need a new one for my bike too. A actually talks about the topic, and then B uses speaking of tires, or rather B uses speaking of, to connect what they want to say with what the previous speaker had already said. Now, of course, it's best that when you start your part 2 long turn, that you use a good introduction. Using an introduction that doesn't entirely make sense, or not using an introduction at all, it might affect your score. Of course, it's a very small part of the whole test, but it might affect your score. And depending on the examiner, it might leave a bad impression with them if you choose an introduction that is not entirely coherent. Now, things that we often hear are things like, or introductions that we often hear are things like, if someone were to ask me about this topic, I would say that blah 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 blah. Or with respect to your question, what springs to mind is. Or to answer your question. Or it's my pleasure to tell you about something. Or when talking about some topic, it's worth pointing out that. And the thing I hear most often, in opening, I would like to tell you about something, something, something. None of these are the right way to start your part 2 long turn. Now, in the future, I might make a video about what are some good ways to do it. But for right now, let me just say, don't say speaking of, and please don't say in opening, I would like to tell you about blah 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 blah. Rather just say something very simple like, today I would like to tell you about something something something, but not in opening, please. Alright, so let's move on to look at the grammar. Initially I thought, wow, she uses a lot of very simple sentences. For example, he's very tall and a little bit overweight. He is very handsome and very charismatic. My mom got this gene from my grandpa. My grandpa is a very modest person. What else? He writes lots of articles in there. One day I was reading his blog. So a lot of simple sentences. Sentences that only have one clause. But she does mix it up a little bit. For example, well, unlike other retired people who play Tai Chi, walk birds, we have to walk birds again, which is so weird. But anyway, here she uses who, so we have a relative clause, and when she talks about the quote, she says, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter where in the world I watch the fireworks, as long as I can hold the hands with my love and enjoy every drop of happiness. So yeah, there are some complex sentences also. Now, of course, very few errors in this. Well, because it was written out, it's not actually something that someone says on the spot. So of course it's going to be pretty much error-free. Although there are a couple of errors. And with regard to grammar, here, the words impressed me most. So she should have said the words which impressed me most. And then, not a grammar mistake as such, more, I put it here in the grammar because I didn't want to open a new file for Lexis. But here where she says, when fireworks display starts. Now, we have a compound noun here because we have firework and we have display. But if you're going to pluralize a compound noun, the S goes with the second word. So it should be firework displays. The S goes with display. And some other issues with language. Haute cuisine, I don't know what that is. Maybe I mishear what she says. I'm not entirely sure. I googled haute cuisine. This is what I get. So, not entirely sure what that's all about. Then she also talks about diversified life. Diversified is not really an adjective that I see used with the noun life very often. Diversified portfolio, when we talk about investing perhaps, or diversified industries, or many nouns, but not life so much. I googled diversified life. I could find a couple of hits coming from Hong Kong. So maybe this is a term used in Hong Kong, but in general, I would say diversified doesn't really go with the noun life. And then she talks about on last nationals holiday. I'm not too familiar with the holidays in China. I don't think it's called nationals holiday. So maybe on the last national holiday. The last national. And she says here, as I can hold the hands with my love. Instead, we should just say, as I can hold hands. We don't need hold the hands. Just hold hands is fine. Let's see, anything else? For coherence, no, I talked about that. Alright, so that's pretty much it then. So for the grammar, yeah, there's a mix of complex and simple sentences. I think if somebody were to actually say this in the real test, there'll be way more mistakes. So the grammar score probably closer to a 6.